going to start again with our next section, and it's my great pleasure to introduce the first teacher who's come up from Victoria. Beck Martin is from Fitzroy Primary School, Fitzroy North, and they've been doing an amazing array of projects throughout the whole of this research project, and it's been a real pleasure to work with them. So I introduce Beck.
Hi guys, how are you? I'm in grade 5-6 now, but I've had some time working in prep and working with iPads. And having been there sort of from the start of iPads being introduced to our school, I could see there was a real need for teachers to be critical of the apps that they were using in their classrooms. So not just looking at apps to teach content, but also looking at apps and games to teach skills and creativity. So the first part of the presentation today is looking at maths apps. So 3 areas I'm looking at today: numeracy, digital storytelling and creativity. So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about today was how to make it work. So being critical of the apps that we use in our classrooms. They're an incredibly valuable learning tool if they're used correctly, and using your iPads in conjunction with your teaching program, not in isolation or in place of your teaching program. So there's 3 types of maths apps. Skill and drill maths apps, which unfortunately make up the bulk of what you can purchase. They're sort of digital worksheets. Then you've got manipulative apps where the child is exploring a maths concept, and constructive apps where the learner's generating knowledge. So this is an example of a skill and drill type app where the student needs to work out what 5 + 4 is. Now, this is fine if you're practicing or reinforcing the skill or assessing it, but if the student doesn't know how to do addition, it's not going to teach them, it's not going to help them get there. This is another example of an app where students can explore things. You might ask them to skip count by 5s or 10s. They can explore different types of counting, to something like this, which is a more creative one where it scaffolds the student through their learning, gives them step-by-step instructions that helps them get from one place to another. So which is best? An app that helps the child construct their own understanding through manipulation, and the best apps are the ones where kids are able to experiment or create, not close. So 2 + 2 is fine if you're assessing or promoting efficiency through skill and drill. So things that traditionally are skill and drill, like handwriting, times tables and spelling, these sorts of apps would be good for that, but we really want to be pushing towards creativity games and games that allow the learner to generate knowledge. So in a junior classroom, I would always pair kids together in 2s or 3s, encouraging collaboration and also getting them to talk to each other. So I made a little bit of a checklist for apps for teachers, so that when they're going through apps, they're able to make really good decisions and choices about the types of apps that they want to use for their learning program. The biggest thing that I say to teachers is, if they're useless, get rid of them. Don't have stuff sitting on your iPads and iPods that you're not going to use. The other advice I give is download them onto your handheld device. Most of us have got iPhones or an iPad that we use at school, and play them yourself. So if you're sitting at a tram stop and you've got 5 minutes up your sleeve, have a play. And you'll find yourself saying, I know I've got fractions coming up in 2 weeks. This is a really great game. I know how to play it, and you can integrate it more easily into your learning teaching program. So the first thing that I look at when I'm getting teachers to be critical of apps that they're using for games in their classroom is the app able to collect data. The other part of getting students to collect data and looking at things is there's a lot of kids will just push every single button until they get the right answer, but they're not stopping and thinking about the question. So an app like Word Magic actually looks at their efficiency. So you're looking to see how many green ticks they're getting rather than just clicking every possible answer until they get the correct one. Are there varying degrees of difficulty? So this enables you as the teacher to choose how hard the game is, and by collecting data, the next time you play that game in your literacy rotations or your numeracy rotations, you know where they're at and you can pop them on the right level. The other thing that you might like to do is let them choose. And I think that tied in nicely before to someone was saying about the kids choosing their own levels and then being more engaged because they're able to challenge themselves. So providing kids with a space for making sense where they can move things around, play with things, rather than just a yes or no answer. So a place for them to explore. So games where kids can weigh things, learn that the hand going down is more heavy, playing around with different concepts. Collaboration, again, working together in pairs. If you're after this checklist, I've got a blog that's got a whole lot of apps on it that you can use in the early years along with this checklist. If you're a school that has iPads or, you know, of other primary schools who are interested in some good examples of apps, I'll just flick through these ones. I just want to talk very quickly to you about apps and digital storytelling. So there's sort of two ways of looking at digital storytelling. There's viewing and creating. So we use a lot of stories to engage students, highly interactive. They can read alone, have it read to, and then have a little go at it themselves, and can be used as part of author studies. So there's really beautiful texts online for kids to have a go at. Giraffe in the Bath and the fantastic flying books of Mr. Morris Lessmore is great for older years. And then moving away from viewing into creating their own. So something that I talk to the kids a lot about when they're creating using games and iPads is that apps don't really like to be friends, but the photo gallery is sort of the glue in the relationship. It makes every app hold hands, sort of. So if you can teach kids the idea that the photo gallery is sort of the mesh and that helps apps become friends, that really helps kids when they're creating things using Book Creator. I'll just finish very quickly on some apps that I've used for creativity in the early years. I know a lot of schools in the senior years are using things like Minecraft. Eden is an app that's sort of like a junior version of Minecraft for little kids. And that sort of digital Lego, that space for kids to create things is really, really valuable. And moves away from sort of skill and drill apps right to the other end of the spectrum where kids are able to make and create things. Often we'd use Eden or even Minecraft in conjunction with a rich learning project or a bigger sort of area of knowledge. So, for example, if we were working with preps, looking at the farm, we might have a project on Eden where kids need to build their dream farm, and we might give them a list of things that they need to take in consideration, like not putting certain animals next to each other or stables and things like that. Sock puppets is a beautiful one for kids who are a bit shy. Changes their voice for them so they can record presentations and share with others. A Play School Art Maker is a great one too for kids to make storyboards and then write stories about afterwards. You can then save those and upload them to your classroom blog. Using Poplet's fantastic. Preps can use this sort of stuff. It's not beyond them. They're amazing. So my kids took a whole lot of photos using non-fiction storybooks, and this is where that notion of understanding that apps can be friends with the photo gallery helps them know that the photos that they take can then go into an app like Poplet where they can make food chains and storyboards and all sorts of stuff. Photo Babble's another one where kids can annotate their work and record a story underneath too. And I'll actually stop there. But if you've got any questions about apps to use in the junior years, please come and see me over lunch. I'd love to talk to you about some of the things we use at North Fitzroy. Thank you.
I'm Jackie Child. I've been teaching for a number of years, in fact 38, and I've held many positions within schools. And I've also been fortunate enough to teach in a number of countries. I'm presently a teacher librarian part-time at St Aidan's Anglican Girls' School, and I've got a lovely photo here of the wonderful environment I work in. In fact, our library is just 4 years old, and from the entrance looking down, so we have some wonderful spaces to use. So, games in education. Well, we all agree, I think, that game teaches at the same time it entertains. I have, throughout my teaching, always used games to enhance learning, from early days of making board games for different subjects to present-day digital games. I was interested in the Xbox. I knew very little about it, but if you know me, you'll understand my passion for action. I'm a very hands-on person and just love to be on the go all the time. I think I could have been a gamer if you didn't have to sit still for so long. I'm a visual learner, so learning through physically interacting with a game had to have benefits. And of course, we all know that exercise boosts oxygen-rich blood to the flow and helps us concentrate. So how could I use Xbox Connect in the library? I have to thank my principal, Louise, for having confidence in me to purchase an Xbox Connect. I knew from talking with the girls that not many of them had used an Xbox Connect, so this in itself was going to be a valuable experience. It is said that girls are not into games as much as boys. Tend to disagree. Our girls were very interested, and you'll see evidence of this in a minute. I set up the Xbox on our TV in the library, but unfortunately we didn't have enough room. So I then moved it onto our mobile interactive whiteboard. Now, our journey started with Connectimals. This was the one we started with. It was probably a bit too young for our girls, but it was a good way, an excellent way, in fact, for us to be introduced into that virtual world. The girls were able to nurture a pet, they were able to teach it new tricks, and they were able to fulfill a quest. The graphics were superb, and the challenges were quite physically demanding. The girls were totally engaged, and together we worked through the quest, but we never quite got there because time ran out. At this point, I should explain that the girls work in rotations in the library. So there are 3 groups. There's a borrowing group, a literature group, and a library skills group. Now, the literature group is where we use the Connect game. And between 6 and 8 players play the game at a time, where taking turns in itself is a positive. Waiting and watching others interact and discuss the moves or the best type of action to get the best results all exhibit actions in gaming. Research has proven that most learners retain information and knowledge by doing or partaking in an activity. The following year, we invested in National Geographic America the Wild. Now, this was excellent, apart from the fact it was American. It'd been great if it'd been Australian animals. Nevertheless, we certainly used it and the girls enjoyed working with it. So the presentation of this game is in 8 episodes. And each episode investigates an animal in the wild. The player learns about the natural environment and has fun doing the game. Using vocal commands, and they interact with sidetracks, and they have assignments, and they have snapshots, and then, of course, they go on to a mini game. The game uses a bit of augmented reality when the space transforms into the animal's habitat. And then the animal's heads and arms and limbs become the child. So you can see there the transformation of the background into the animal habitat and how the players, they become avatars. The action then requires animals-like movements to succeed in the challenge. The player is an active learner as she engages physically with the game. And the girls really gained a deeper understanding and experience than they perhaps may have done from a book, and that is really hard for me to say. I'll just show you some video. You can see the girls here, how they're using their arms and limbs, they're scratching, clawing, protecting their young, trying to attack prey, and the reaction of their scores as they come up, and then that smooth transition, they've worked out who's going to play next, and then you can see, I love the facial expressions, and they actually take on the animal itself. I just loved it. That's when it was a bit too small. We had to move around to the interactive whiteboard because it got even more physical. So after we did that, after a couple of terms of playing that, we then went on to create games. And they did this in pencil. You can see there, the girls really enjoyed designing and making their avatars. And then they worked through their quests, most of them quests that they worked through. But the really interesting thing was that they really spent a lot of time on what moves would get the best results. So they really did. You could see them in the library. They were actually trying things, and you see they worked in pairs. and they would, whatever their game was about, they would then take on or make a move that would be jumping up or moving around. So that was really interesting to watch. So after watching and enjoying the girls with all the collaboration and supporting each other, it dawned on me how this game was in fact a non-fiction. Now with non-fiction, with the girls, we delve in and out of them, we find pieces of information that are relevant and we read them. And not like a fiction where you read from front to end. And I thought, well, hang on, this is actually a non-fiction text. It's not in print, but the girls they recommend chapters to each other and they delve in and out of it. So that was a real positive for me to when I sort of suddenly dawned on me, this is what it was all about. We then purchased Puss in Boots. Now, although this is movie inspired, it does mention many fairy tale characters. And because our year fives, I actually look at classics this term, this works really well. In Puss in Boots, they take on the cat-like skills and stalking. So it's really good. And then we use the classics, so it fits in quite well. And of course, these are available to the girls at lunchtime in the library, so they can have a play with them. From doing the serious play, I was really inspired, I guess, and I came across this book, and I can highly recommend it. It was a Foundations to Year 6 digital technologies, and from that, it then led me on to starting a code club in the school. And you can see we do a lot of unplugged activities, and we also do activities on the computer. Many of the girls, we use iPad apps like Alex and Hopscotch and Junior Scratch, and on their tablets they're using Scratch. So they're actually designing and programming. Now, after that, I then came across, actually through the digital technology MOOC, I came across maker spaces and the maker movement. And from the mat, I've now started a maker space in the library so the girls can create, invent and learn. And that's been fabulous. Now, so as I previously said, playing games I've always believed have a huge benefit. And when I was doing geography, I found this app, and it was a game. It's about Run That Town. All the statistics are taken from the ABS, and it fitted in so well with our Year 5 geography curriculum, so that was a huge bonus. So I do use digital games. Where I started all those years ago making board games, I now try to incorporate as many digital games into the library as we can. And so where to from here? Well, I found out there's a MOOC on gaming, so I'm going to give that a go.
Hi everyone. I was working with Minecraft with a Year 3 cohort last year. Now, I just want to say from the outset that I knew nothing about Minecraft when I introduced it to my class. I still know very little about Minecraft, so however, my students have done wonderful work with Minecraft, so that just goes to show that you don't have to know it all to be able to use games with students. If anyone lives under a rock and doesn't know what Minecraft is, there's a little explanation up there that basically we even talked about the fact that was it a game, in terms of most games have rules, most games have a winner, most games have a beginning and an end. Minecraft has none of those things. So there's no instructions for playing the game. When you get into Minecraft, you just have to figure it out. We had the Minecraft EDU, which is an educational mod of the game. So even though a couple of students in the class had, probably 5 students had played Minecraft, no one had seen Minecraft EDU, which did allow me to have some level of control over the game. Not a lot, but enough to stop it being about killing and zombies and things like that. How I became interested in Minecraft, obviously I'm part of what has affectionately become known as the Bloody Serious Play Project. So I did have to do something with games, and the impetus for me came out of a little girl I had in my class who's severely dyslexic, and I do have permission from her mum to talk about this. she struggled with all tasks to do with reading and writing. However, we make her read and we make her write, or attempt to. So whenever she did have the chance to do some sort of free writing, she'd often write about Minecraft. So she was a Minecraft gamer outside of the classroom. And I often used to look at her and think, you poor thing, you come here, we make you study novels and we make you write about characters, and really it means nothing to you. You're not even interested. So I thought, wouldn't it be good if we could take something that I knew she was interested in and that would perhaps motivate her and do something with it. So I thought that I would just use Minecraft as a springboard for some literacy activities, just to give her a really meaningful purpose to write. However, it did develop into much more than that. I don't know that you can see this very well, but when I first introduced Minecraft, as I said, I knew nothing about it, and apart from thinking we'll do some writing about it, I really had no idea what I was going to do with it. I was staying one day ahead of the girls. I would literally go home at night and think, God, what am I going to do tomorrow? So I actually asked the girls why they thought I'd introduced Minecraft. And apart from this student thinking I'm the coolest teacher ever for introducing it, it's interesting that this child thought that I was going to use it because it would help with thinking, and another thought it was going to help. I was introducing it just to help them learn the computer keys, and this one thought mazes and puzzles. And then this student here said she thought we were going to do some engineering or building with Minecraft. And she said she was suspicious. So she had a right to be suspicious, because I thought, what a good idea. That's what I'm going to do. So I said to her, you won, you got it right. But we did do a lot of literacy tasks around it, but a lot of tasks that had carry over into other subject areas. So we learned about T-charts and about comparing. And we compared the building games, Lego and Minecraft. What were the things that were similar, what were different. So even that skill of comparing and contrasting was a useful one. We also the girls had to keep a journal and reflect on everything they did with Minecraft. So every day I'd come up with 1 or 2 questions and they had to reflect on it. So I asked them things like what they learnt from playing Minecraft in the beginning, and how they learnt things, because I think it's really good for students to consider how they learn, because often it's something they just do and they don't stop and think about how they're doing it. So she said, she learnt things from asking someone, from reading screen hints, experience with other games, watching others, trial and error. So just those things, you can always fall back on those things when they're struggling with something else. Say, well, how did you do it in Minecraft? You asked somebody, or you used trial and error, so you can call on those things. So when the literacy side of things had continued, it then grew into a design and technology project. So our school had a science and tech showcase coming up, and every year level has to put something together. And I thought here was a great opportunity for the girls to do something with Minecraft. By now they were all skilled crafters. And so they came up with the idea of recreating our entire junior school in Minecraft. And I don't know if you've ever attempted to play Minecraft. That is a phenomenal thing to even undertake. How Year 3 girls came up with this idea and were so willing to take it on surprised me. As you can see by our student here in the middle, it wasn't all plain sailing. She was ready to throw her computer on the ground that day. But through the process of creating the junior school in Minecraft, again, they were doing this reflecting along the way. So they encountered problems pretty quickly. So I asked them to document what those problems were and what are they going to do about that going forward? So they kind of came up with their own code of conduct, their own action plan of what they're going to do if people got in the way or people were destroying things they were trying to build, or, you know, all those little scenarios. They had to think it through in order to get this project finished in a very short time frame. Not ideal photos, but there they are. They're all just busy working away doing Minecraft. Along the way, I also wrote reflections for the Bloody Serious Play project, and that was one that I found that I'd done, and I thought it really sums it all up. I'd never seen my students, every single one of them, so actively engaged in what they were doing. It didn't start off that way. My best students, my high-achieving students, were very opposed to using it in the beginning because it wasn't something they did, it wasn't something they felt comfortable with, and they couldn't see really why I was introducing it. They were suspicious. And the little girl in particular, the dyslexic one, was a brilliant player. And she became the Minecraft star of the classroom, something she had never, ever experienced before. She had always been the one being helped and had never had the opportunity to be the helper. So that was gold in itself. If nothing else came out of this, to see that child experience that level of success, that was worth everything. As a little offshoot in our design and tech project, we also had the senior school help us, and we used a 3D printer to actually create some Minecraft creepers. That's what they are. Following on from that, we then went on to the girls all coming up with their own building projects. So everyone worked on the junior school project, building that. But then we still had a couple of weeks left at the end of term, so they all had to come up with something they wanted to build of their own, and again follow the process of design. So they had to plan, they had to test, they had to evaluate it and replan and build. And we had girls taking on things like the Eiffel Tower, because they by now were getting on YouTube and looking up, you know, what people were building in Minecraft, and they weren't afraid to take anything on. They did reflect afterwards on how they went with it. Was it too big a task? You know, did they take all the things they were meant to take into consideration? Did they really think it through? I also sought parent feedback at the end. And here's a couple of samples of some of the things parents said. Now, I put this one up in particular. So she said, you know, that she could really see value in children playing this. The parents never objected to the project in the beginning, but I think they trusted in me that if I was doing it, it must have had a good purpose and hopefully would have a good outcome. But I think they were pretty much unsure as to what I was doing. So to get feedback like this, I mean, I did ask for it. I did say, tell me what you think. It didn't have to be nice. This father actually had written to me early on in the piece and said that his daughter didn't want to play Minecraft because there were monsters in it and that she would start having nightmares and blah, blah, blah. So, again, he just heard the word Minecraft and he went off and thought it was going to be about killing and monsters and things. But when I explained to him, no, we had the EDU version and I could turn off things like monsters and all that, he actually came back when I asked for feedback at the end and said how impressed he was. From the point of view of girls often don't get the opportunity to create in 3D, and it's often a skill left for senior school rather than so early on the primary school. While the girls were doing their junior school, recreating the junior school, it was interesting to watch them, girls in perspective. They'd constantly have to get up and go outside and look at the building and work out what was on the right, what was on the left. They would start to build something in Minecraft and I'd say, are the stairs really there or are they on the other side? And they couldn't quite see it in their head, so they have to physically get up and walk around the school and see where things were. This is from the mum. This is a very small part of a very long email from the mum of the little dyslexic girl, who she said she was appreciative of the gift to her child of a project where she benefited from being slightly ahead. So the fact that she was the expert at this, and she'd never been the expert in anything at school before. And this little scribed bit at the bottom was scribed by another child, but that they are the words of the little dyslexic girl, where she said, the weirdest thing is, I think I like writing about Minecraft as much as I like playing the game. I just about stood up and went, yes, when she said that, because she'd never wanted to write before. And to say that she liked writing about it as much as she liked playing it. And she says it's freedom. And that's it.
Hi everyone, I'm Bree from Merrimack. Firstly, I'd just like to thank Roberta and Catherine for your continuous support throughout the last 12 months. Without the two of you, I would have given up a long time ago. Just a little bit about me. I am primary trained, but I'm teaching in the middle years in a secondary school. I've worked 10 years in hospitality, so my subjects that I teach are hospitality in Year 10, food technology Year 9, home economics Year 8, Year 8 science, Year 9 English. So it's quite challenging at times when it comes to planning. And last year I was teaching Year 10 so my subjects have changed from when I first started in the project. I'll just give you a little bit of background about our school too. So Merrimack is a rather large school with quite a diverse clientele, which greatly affected me in implementing gaming into the classroom. Last year, when I was approached by a fellow teacher to take part in this project, I jumped at the chance because I struggle a little bit with what I like to call the war on apathy. A lot of my students in my Year 10 SOS class looked like the classroom above. And prior to working at Merrimack, I worked at Varsity College where they have a one-to-one laptop program. And the kids were so enthusiastic about bringing their computers to school, using their computers in every subject, and implementing something like the Serious Play would not have ever been an issue. And we had used Minecraft previously and lots of other games. So when I came to Merrimack, out of 28 kids, you were lucky to get 2 to bring their laptops to school. So when Roberta and Catherine came, I was like, yes, I'm going to do this to get my kids to bring the computers to school. And I used a game called AET, The Cost of Life, and a sweatshop program. So in SOS, we were studying at the time statistics of third world countries, etc. The old don't you know how lucky you are, and my stories of travelling through Southeast Asia and what I've witnessed personally was not getting through to the kids. They refused to believe that a child of 8 would be working in a sweatshop because they had no choice. They refused to believe the fact that some people in this world don't get an opportunity to go to school, and they had no correlation or no perception of literacy rates affected life expectancy or GMP per capita. So in order for them to understand, I thought, well, maybe I could use a sweatshop game. This game here, they had to piece together a pair of shoes in a time frame. And the longer that it took them, the more blurry the screen got, because they only got a certain amount of money per shoe. And if they weren't getting their shoes pumped out quick enough, they couldn't afford to eat or drink. So if they couldn't afford to eat or drink, they couldn't see the shoe. Therefore, they couldn't get the shoe delivered in time. And they would either end up dying or losing their job. IET, the students were in charge. It's a simulation game free and accessible online, and the students were in charge of a family of 5 from Haiti. It's a marvellous game, and I saw great results with it. The students were finally able to make that connection between literacy and life expectancy. The students were in charge of the family, and they had to make a decision on who went to the factory to work, who got to go to school, whether they spent their money on food or whether they spent the money on school resources or medical costs, which were very expensive. It was a very, very hard game to be successful in. So something else that I struggled with my kids is resilience. And I was really shocked at how the class reacted to this game and how much they tried and tried and tried and tried again to keep the family alive. Because slowly one family member at a time would die off, which was really sad, but they slowly made the connection that, hey, one of them has to go to school, or the 2 kids have to go to school, or the mum has to go to school in order for the family to survive. So it was quite interesting. And the conversation in the classroom changed. They started understanding what it might be like living in a third world country, particularly somewhere like Haiti, because every so often the game would stop and a text box would pop up and say, it's cyclone season, or there's just been a tsunami, or a severe weather has affected your crops, so you have nothing to eat this season. Things like that, and it really shocked them that real life people actually have to go through these situations. So yeah, that was my SOS experience. And then this year I was given more subjects or subject changes. So I have a Year 9 English class. Once again, Roberta and Catherine were lovely enough to point me in the direction of Mist, which, upon my own research, I found was a wonderful game. It is an adventure game filled with colourful pictures, scenery. There's a lot of literacy involved. They have to read about riddles and they have to read text, so it was quite literacy involved. Upon my research, I found Tim Rylance, a teacher in the UK who has used MIST to enhance creative writing skills and vocabulary, which we so happen to be studying. So upon my research also, I found lesson plans and resources all done for me. I thought, you beauty, I've hit the jackpot. I don't have to do much planning. Unfortunately, because we are an EQ school, the program that you need to run MIST was blocked. So I ran into a few brick walls there. I thought, no worries, I'll get myself a console version. So I went to JB Hi-Fi, and I only have a PS3, or my husband has a PS3 at home. I thought, I'll bring that in and they can play that. Unfortunately, there is no version for PS3. It's only available on iPads or Nintendo DS. So there was another hiccup. And then lovely Roberta told me about a Year 12 student who analysed Assassin's Creed. I thought, okay, here's an idea. I found a trailer for the new Assassin's Creed game, and we played that in class, and I used that to build vocabulary and creative writing skills. The kids were interested, they were engaged because 99% of them had played the game before. They hadn't seen this version before, so they were intrigued on what might happen next. So we did some brainstorming, we learnt new words, we did some characterisation, and then they did a predicting task where they predicted what would happen next in the story. The following term, we were doing Shakespeare. The mere mention of Shakespeare in my English class, moans and groans, started to happen. We watched the Baz Luhrmann film, and that brought about a little bit more interest because of the dreamy Leonardo DiCaprio. So the girls were mystified by him, but unfortunately they didn't really understand what the story was about. So I played Jeopardy, with the kids. They built teamwork skills, and I think they learnt a little bit more about the themes and the language features involved. So these were my topics. We looked at the characters, scenes, the cause and effect, because we were analysing the story, and the literary features. At the end of the unit, after they had written their essays, we played Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? This game for me was quite enlightening because I have a very, very low English class. I've got 2 high flyers and the rest like C's, D's and E's. So Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and setting it up to have questions around the literacy features enabled me to see that the low kids actually could identify the literary features. So they knew, or they had learnt something. Unfortunately, they just weren't able to put it into an essay context. So for me, it was awesome to see that they did understand, they did learn something. Lastly, something to think about upon my own reflection. Society has changed. Kids are interested in different things. For me, something interesting equals engagement, and there's a time and a place for games. So I learned it doesn't have to be a gaming game. It can just be something like a quiz show, and it intrigues the kids, it interests them, it engages them. So what's the harm in trying something new? That's what I learnt from this project, so thanks for having me and thanks for including me.
All right, thanks everyone. So yes, unfortunately Janine Stone from Pacific Lutheran College couldn't be here today because she is somewhere in Europe, and she tells me that she is thinking of us right now. So I've been working with Janine for the past 3 years as a research assistant on this project. So I'm going to give you my bird's eye view of what they've been up to at Pacific Lutheran. I guess the first thing is she's been doing game making. She is an IT specialty teacher. She's been working with students from year 6 to year 12 at her school because they have a P to 12 school. She's heavily involved with the technology side of her school. And for me, and I think I could say, I speak for Janine as well, Janine's not a huge game player, but she sees the power in games, and she sees game making as one of, the next great, or the current great design field of our times. So that's part of the rationale as to why she has students making games. This is a quote from Janine about why she thinks making games is important. And I'll just read that to you. When students make a game, is that the freedom to make something that responds to you, and when they're making it, when they play it, they get 2 different angles. Is it responding in the way they planned it, and how do I change it to get it? It's that level of thinking, and it really gets down to this critical thinking. It really does engage them. Their work really does reflect that depth of thinking. So for her, it's about programming gets kids thinking in critical ways. This is a perspective of a very perceptive Year 7 female student. She says, lots of schools don't have this opportunity yet to make your own games. This subject is I think it'll definitely be important for the future, because if you notice, there's more people and more money is going into the industry of gaming, and that's what the future is going to be. And you really need to learn how to use all sorts of technology when you're younger. You need to know how to program the future, which I thought was a really lovely quote, programming the future. So over the 3 years, the classrooms of hers that I've visited were Year 6 and Year 7 and Year 8 classrooms. It's been over the last 3 years, and we're located on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, and we've been focusing on the journey of making games. Throughout the 3 years, Janine actually uses quite a lot of different products to make games. The 3 that she's used with me when I've been in the classroom have been Click and Play, Scratch, and most recently this year we've been using a product called Kodu Game Lab, which I think is made by Microsoft. To introduce concepts to students, she would have self-paced instruction. At the beginning of every lesson, She would bring all the class together and do the goal setting, like this is what we're trying to do today. Then she'd have these resources to get them actually learning how to make games. So she'd have like little games for them to make along the way. They started as just like handouts that the kids would be following, and then she actually turned them into PowerPoints or videos for kids to actually follow step by step through. At the end of every lesson, she'd get them all together again. She'd look at some of the cool things some of the kids had been doing and reflect on where they were with what they'd created. Then after they'd done, several weeks of creating set games, here's a maze game, now you do it, here's a shooting game, now you do it, they then had to come up with their own ideas for what sort of game they wanted to make. So they had to take those skills that they learned and apply them in a new way to a new project, their own original game idea. The picture up there, there's the task sheet of what they had to create. They had to create a planning document about what they were going to create, and the student's holding up his plan aside the game that he's actually making at the time. That screenshot is of Kodu, which is a 3D gaming environment. Once they created their games, they then had other students in their class to actually play their games, and they actually gave them a report and a score and some critical feedback on what they could do better. And it was really interesting, they'd been told in class, oh, you need to make sure your game's got instructions. The very day they had to do the peer assessment, the instructions got put in because they needed to do it or else no one would know how to play. And you'd also hear things across the room saying, if this happens, make sure you do this. They really wanted to make sure people had a great experience playing their games, but they also realised that maybe they hadn't put the instructions there that were necessary. So when we asked the students, what did they like about it, what were the challenges? When this was last year, one of the students was doing Scratch. He just said it got a bit overwhelming. There's just so many different things, so many different loops, so many different things to do, so many different animations, and sometimes it's confusing. You don't really know which thing that you need to know. So whilst there were challenges, they also reflected, and all of them got a working game, and they were proud of their efforts. And I really liked some of these quotes, some of the things they really liked about it. They liked the freedom of choice for what your game's topic is because they can do something that's easy or something that they're doing in their own life, but in a game. And this last kid, I should have actually played the audio because it was something like, my game's about a fish who returns to his new house, but then this random shark destroys it, so he sets out an adventure to destroy that shark. And he just sort of kept going and going and going. So that was fun. But, they were really passionate about what they made their games about. So just as we were talking about gameplay earlier, game making also brings that passion out in the kids as well. From a teacher's perspective, Janine commented that she noticed that the thinking that the kids were doing and, some of their games, they had to use a programming concept called variables. And she was saying that her year 11 students, some of them didn't really get that very well. And here she had, I think it was a year 6 student who was going great guns with that concept because he was making his game. And he needed that information to be able to make his game successfully. At the end of this year, they also documented the learning journey of making that game and created digital portfolios for parents. So the items that, and the focus was on documenting the journey and the reflection on the process. So within their digital portfolio, they had the student's design document. They had an evaluation that the student, or a reflection of the student on how he or she thought their game went, and a screenshot of it. They had several peer evaluations from their colleagues in the classroom. They had the teacher assessment, the rubric, and they also had a screencast of their game. So they actually recorded a video. So this is just, the student has taken a screen recording of his game as it's being played, and this particular one's a multiplayer game through a water environment, a racing game. And one thing Janine said to me, which was interesting, she said, I'm not very good at playing games, so if I have to demonstrate this game to the parent, I'm never very good at it. So it was actually nice to have the kids record the game how it was supposed to be played rather than someone like her trying to play it. And she said it was really great having that to share with the parents. And she said she'd never documented that journey before, and she felt it gave a really good context for the children on what they were doing, but also helped the parents understand the whole process and the really great things that students are learning through game making. So what's next at Pacific Lutheran? Well, Janine's been making games in the classroom for quite some time, and she'll continue to do that. She's always looking for different ways of teaching games and different products to use. And so these are some of the products that she's been using so far. She also, with her, I think, Year 10s, she's even using a professional game development tool as well called Unity. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be involved in this project. Thanks.